In today's show, the shorthanded Blazers respond well in a rematch against the Nuggets. Yeah, they lost, but they looked a lot better doing it, and now they head into the All-Star break. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, talking about the Blazers rematch in Denver. They played the Nuggets again for the second of a two-game set to close out the first half of the season as they head into the All-Star break. They lose this one, but they didn't get thrashed like they did in the first meeting. They just a normal loss where they weren't particularly threatening at any point. I thought there was some positive signs here. We'll talk about those. Donovan Clingan, who got the start, played pretty darn well. The Blazers, there were some things to be hopeful or at least thankful for in this game. Plus, we got some news, injury updates on DeAndre Ayton and a little bit of Scoot Henderson news to parse. We'll get into that, and then we'll talk about the Blazers, where they stand at the All-Star break as they're done with their first two-thirds of the season, 55 games into this bad boy, and we will talk about where they're at. Let's do what we do, though, starting with our fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose this game 132-121. Did it feel similar early? Well, not right away. Not right away. In the last game, the Nuggets went 11 for 11 on Monday. They started 11 for 11. They scored 28 points in the first 8 minutes of the game, and it was like, oh yeah, there's no chance. But a couple days later, the Blazers kind of made you feel like there was a chance. They led 5-0 and 8-2, but then the Nuggets started rolling. They scored 40 points in the first quarter and behind 14 from Jamal Murray, which would be a theme, and led 40-27 after one. Jamal Murray, another 16 in the second quarter. He's got 30 at the break. Goodness gracious, and the Nuggets lead 75-56. This one felt all of a sudden the same. Kind of the same deal, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, Portland just can't stop this team. The Blazers are playing this game without DeAndre Ayton. We'll talk about him in a moment. He's out for at least a month. No Rob Williams, no Scoot Henderson. He's out with a sprained ankle. No Jabari Walker, no Jeremy Grant in this one. They start Chris Murray in place of Jeremy Grant and in place of Scoot Henderson, with Shaedon Sharpe still on the bench. We'll talk about that more in a little bit as well. It's like they're shorthanded. They got Donovan Clingan stepping into the starting lineup, just like we talked about a whole bunch on yesterday's program. Shout out to my everydayers who listen to the program every single day, wherever they're already listening to this one. They were listening to that one too, unless you're someone who switches up mediums like a crazy person. But the Blazers are shorthanded, and it still feels generally the same. It's like they don't know how to guard the Nuggets, except instead of it being Jokic who's just tearing them apart, it's mostly Jamal Murray. They try to put a lot of Tumani on Nikola Jokic and then show him double teams and then sort of scramble off those double teams. But then there was times in the second quarter when they were trying to double team Murray and double team Jokic when either of them got the ball and then scramble off of both of those. And I thought that was just maybe I get it in the sense of like the theory of the team, right? If you're going to start Murray and Tumani and Denny, you've got these wings that are interchangeable, and you hopefully with length can fly around to do all these things. It just wasn't functionally. It wasn't great, and Murray wasn't even playing in those minutes when they were like super double teaming. It was a lot of Delano Banton. So it just felt like you get to halftime down 19, like. Yeah, they don't have a way to stop these dudes. They're about to lose by a cajillion, and they trailed by as many as 23 in the third quarter. The cajillion was coming. Another 15 from Jamal Murray. He's got 45 after three quarters. But the Blazers, instead of being down 30 and making the fourth quarter a total formality, are only down 16. And they hung around in the fourth quarter. They cut it to 9 on technically 4 separate occasions, but really twice of note. They cut it to 9 with 9 minutes left at the free throw line, and then Anthony Simons made a layup with 4 minutes left, 3:56 on the clock. That also cut it to 9. So they were within single digits of the 9-minute mark, and they were within single digits of the 4-minute mark. They never got closer. They cut it to 9 a couple other times, and they end up losing 132-121. That's their fastest recap in the West. But I felt like this was a quit game. This was a game where you just like, shoot, Jamal Murray has a cajillion. Shoot, we're down 23 in the third quarter. Shoot, we got a week off. I got a vacation somewhere warm, or I'm just going to go home and do nothing for the first time in 4 months. Like, it was the type of game that teams can and sometimes do let go of the rope. And this is a type of game that maybe earlier in the season or at a certain point of this season, the Blazers would have said, yeah, we just don't have it. And then maybe not intentionally, right, where they say, okay, they go to the huddle and they say 1, 2, 3 Cancun, but like just it creeps in, right? The reality of the season, the reality of the All-Star break, all of it creeps in, and you just let it. You let it, you give up. You let it take over, and collectively you don't bring the efforts, and all of a sudden a 23 point lead in the third quarter swells to 33, and the game's over, and nobody has to play the fourth quarter. They made the Nuggets play the fourth quarter. It's just like they at no point did they stop them. They give up a $132. They held the Nuggets all the way down to a mere 51% shooting. Nuggets, who didn't really make threes in the Monday meeting, had only 8 in that game, hit 15 in this one, and Jamal Murray finished with a 55. He only had 10 in the fourth quarter. Is that something to be proud of? And ho-hum Nikola Jokic just had 26, 15, and 10. You could say that they did a good job on Jokic. You might even be able to say they did a good job on him. He was only 11 of 20 from the floor. But like, did they? I think the real truth is that, like, I think for the sort of general holistic health of like where this team is and where they want to be, this was a good sign precisely because they didn't quit. Not because they were hyper competitive or all these things, but precisely because they didn't go quietly when they easily could have. I have some more thoughts on the rest of this game, including Donovan Clingan, who I thought played really, 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 really well in his starts. Jabari Walker had some nice minutes. I want to talk Shaedon Sharpe and Chris Murray and the sort of balance of those things. Let's get the news, though, because we do have some news indeed. DeAndre Ayton, you kind of knew this coming. We did get the PDF in the email. DeAndre Ayton will be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So let's take it at face value. They're calling it a left calf strain. Will be reevaluated in 4 weeks. That is the language in the Blazers press release, their official announcement. Okay, so 4 weeks. If you say it's exactly 4 weeks from today, and he were to come back on that 4-week mark, the Blazers would have 16 games left in the regular season upon return. He'd have to play that night upon return. So I think that's fairly unlikely. Although we've seen recently with some injuries that those reevaluation dates have been closer to return dates, particularly with Donovan Clingan's knee sprain, and also another recent injury for ankle injury for Rob Williams as well. So maybe, right? So if DA is available right at that reevaluation date at 4 weeks, they reevaluate him on that day and they say you're good to go. There'd be 16 games left in the regular season. If you were to miss another week beyond that, you get to 12. If he misses time beyond that, you're down to single-digit games remaining, right? They're the 55-game mark, right? Like that's typically about 55 games is the All-Star break. The Blazers happen to be specifically at 55. There's a chance that this injury ends DeAndre Ayton's season. And that sucks. He had a pretty bumpy first 30 games, and then he was finding his rhythm. I think this has sort of been a trend in the 2 years of DeAndre Ayton we've seen, is like a pretty rocky December, and then gets it going. And it just stinks because I think it was starting to feel like, okay, they figured out what's the formula to get the best out of DeAndre Ayton, and DeAndre Ayton in his own right was figuring out how do I maximize what I do every night and all those things. I can't, I'm only speculating here, to be clear. But if it is, I do think once you get down to there's 8 games left in the regular season, it becomes way less likely that you ramp up DeAndre Ayton to play. So if he's available right away, I think 16 games left, there's certainly a decently good chance that he plays. If it lingers longer than that 4-week mark, I think you're looking at a season ender for DeAndre. So I hope he gets well soon. Even if he isn't unable to play the season, I hope this isn't a thing that lingers and that he can be back playing basketball in the summertime and do all of and do all of those things. The other injury update we got is Scoot Henderson is done for the All-Star break. No surprise here, as speculated yesterday on the show. It's like when, if they rule him out Tuesday for a Wednesday night game with an ankle injury, that means they know he can't play, right? And if you're ruled out a day early for that game, out, like not questionable, not doubtful, out on the injury report more than 24 hours before the game. It was like the 2 o'clock, or 5 Eastern, but like it was like the 2 o'clock injury report or 2:30 injury report. It was early, right? The Blazers aren't an early team typically, but they said, here's our deal. Those dudes aren't available. And because Scoot was ruled out, it seemed like, his All-Star weekend is in jeopardy, and now officially he is out for All-Star weekend. It'd be really weird if he didn't play in a Wednesday game that actually counted and then flew to San Francisco to play in a fake exhibition game on Friday. That would be really odd. At the moment that he was ruled out for the game, it felt very unlikely, but obviously nothing was official. But now it's official. Scoot Henderson will not participate in his would have been record fourth, probably unbreakable record, 4th Rising Stars Challenge. Instead, he's been replaced by Denver Julian Strother. Stinks. I hope this is, no PDF for Scoot, right? This seems like a short-term thing, and I would assume that he will be back after the All-Star break. And, if he doesn't play, if he's, he was hurt on Monday. They don't play till the following Thursday. He gets, over a week off, 10 days off to kind of get right and get off his feet and get healthy and make a charge because Scoot was playing a lot better. So, I think this is the right and responsible thing to do. But as, selfishly, obviously, I would like to see him play in some fake basketball games over the weekend, and I imagine you would too. That's your news. DA out for at least a month, and Scoot Henderson out for this weekend at all. This will not participate in All-Star weekend. So that means the Blazers, they'll still have Toumani Camara, and they'll still have Bryce McGowan's representing the NBA G League in the Rising Stars game. So obviously we'll cover that a little bit as it is warranted on Monday's program after the Friday night game. But no Scoot to watch. Those are your injury updates. This game was, Blazers did not go away in this game, and I think they should be commended for not going away. But the highlight of this game was that Donovan Clingan played really well. Got a start, played 31 minutes, and played really well. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about Jabari Walker and Shaedon Sharpe all in that second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let me tell you that today's program is brought to you by WayFair. And after the hustle, the bustle, and all of the other things that come with the changeover in the new year, you might just be ready to give your home a little TLC. And you might be ready to do some decluttering, some refreshing, and help make your space look a little bit better so you can get back into routine and continue 2025 on the right foot. Whether you're tidying up or you're clearing out space, or you just want that new look and new feel, WayFair has everything you need, and it's all within your budget. Whether you're looking at furniture to fill a gigantic space or the right small little side piece that's going to fit in your space that demands efficiency, you're going to find it. Plus, there's all types of styles, and they have many, many pieces that can fit within your budget. Plus, they got free and hassle-free delivery even on the larger items. And WayFair's site is super easy to navigate so you can find everything you need in no time. Give your home the refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair, every style, every home. All right. So, Donovan Clingan steps in for DeAndre Ayton in the starting lineup. Rob Williams missed this game also with an ankle injury. So you're down to DC as you're starting like true center left in the lineup, and all Donovan Clingan does is respond with a 31-minute outing in which he had 17 points, 20 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 block shots. 17, 22, and 3. He was 7 of 12 from the floor. He grabbed 10 offensive boards, a little bit overstated on account of grabbing his own misses. What Tom Haberstroh called on the broadcast, I won't say it, those are Z-bounds. How dare you disrespect Zach Randolph during a Trailblazers game? Tom, get it together, my dude. in any case, 17-20 from DC. This wasn't the game where you like, yeah, that dude's rookie of the year, but this was a game where you were like, yeah, yes, he has stuff. Let him go. This is what I talked about in yesterday's program, was that like part of me doesn't want to see more of Donovan Clingan because I am so certain that he can dominate. I want to see what it looks like with more on his plate. And the Blazers were smart about using him. They didn't put him full-time on Nikola Jokic, right? They tried to put him on off of that action a little bit so he could either double team or roam, or so he couldn't just get picked on. They tried to put, they were being a little creative with the way they handled Jokic. They didn't want to show him the same, the same thing every time, and they were punished by having Jamal Murray score 20 million points. Real quick on Murray, there was a time this year when Jamal Murray looked like he was one of the worst contracts in the NBA. Like, it's just like, oh, the Nuggets, he was so good for them during their title run. They obviously don't win the championship without him, and they gave him all that money because he earned it, and now he's like, I'm turning into a pumpkin. Over the last, 15 games, I couldn't call it because I don't track the Nuggets that quickly, but 6 weeks, month, Jamal Murray's good again, and he was awesome tonight. Obviously, like 55 is crazy. He took 36 shots, but yeah, like the reason that they can win a championship is because they have Nikola Jokic, but the reason that you feel good about them winning a championship is because of how good Jamal is. He was really awesome tonight. He did it in every type of way. He was physical to the rim. He's a great mid-post player for someone his size. He made threes. The two-man game with Jokic was good. He was fantastic. But back to DC briefly. This is what I want to see from him. He got into, I don't really believe in foul trouble, but he did factually commit 5 fouls. And on his 5th foul, he got absolutely trucked in the chest by Christian Braun, and it looked like he just got the wind knocked out of him. As soon as he got hit, Braun tried to lowered his shoulder and hit him to make sure that he could, not get his shot swatted, because Clingan had literally blocked Jamal Murray's layup on the previous possession. Christian Braun saw that and said, I'm not going out like that. He hit him hard in the chest, physical drive. Clingan gets knocked back and on the opposite side of the rim, and Braun is able to go for a layup and draws a foul because he did a good job creating enough space, or the right amount of space, against the shot blocker. And clearly, it seemed like to me, seemed like to me that Clingan just got the absolute wind knocked out of him. He's just like, whoops, do not have my breath. And he sat for a little bit, but he still came back and ended up playing 31 minutes. You saw it from him. He's one of the things that they were really yelling at him, and wherever the mic was on the broadcast tonight, you could hear the bench yelling, run DC, run DC, run DC. They were yelling at him to run the floor in a transition on offense, or like just switch sides quickly, beat his man to the rim. And I thought DC did a great job of switching ends quickly. He's not fast. He's not fast. My man does not move quickly. He is not fleet of foot. He is gigantic though. And getting down and getting into space early, doing that work early gives him a chance, right? And that's the challenge for him. I think there's some cardiovascular concerns with him in terms of just like, is he in good enough shape to play regularly 30 minutes? But watching him come back in this game in the 4th quarter, I wasn't like, oh, put this poor baby on the bench. He plays hard. He played hard. And when he came back in the game, he played hard. And 31 minutes is just a great number for him to play. If the Blazers injury situation remains somewhat similar to what it is, and DA is out for, a month plus, I hope that this is what we see. 28 to 33 minutes of Donovan Clingan every night. Put as much on your plate as you can handle. In this game, he rolls to the rim, is play finisher, offensive rebounder, just getting himself to the front of the rim. A couple times he got it and he short arms it because he doesn't have great touch and not super explosive, but stays with it, gets rebounds, is physical, guards the rim well, uses his gigantic frame. A really nice step in the right direction for Clingan, and exactly what you want to see. This was a solid game from the youngster. With some obvious caveats, what you're going to see with a young guy. He can get better. This was a really good step. And while he played a game where he could get better, he had freaking 17, 22, and 3 blocks. 17, 20 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 blocks on a game where it felt like he left some stuff on the table. Yeah, dude, he's going to be a box score monster. Let him go. Hope we get to see more of him. The backup center minutes went to Jabari Walker in this game. I thought Jabari played pretty darn well. He always hustles, right? He always plays hard. Finished with 7 rebounds, including just an offensive board, and he had another offensive board that they on a challenge went away from. But the challenge for Jabari is just like, how does he score? What is he like on offense? Tonight, he made threes, 3 of 3 from 3, finished 6 of 7 from the floor, had a great cut where he cut from the angle, what sometimes they call a 45 cut or slot cut. But like he cut from the foul line, extended at the 3-point line, straight into the middle of the paint, that little angle cut. And Shaedon Sharpe made the dish. Walker finished. Great cut, great pass. He finished with 17 and 7, and just like the general like hard playing good stuff from him. The other thing you need to know in this game is that Shaedon Sharpe came off the bench. Okay, sure. I think this in the grand scheme of everything, Shaedon Sharpe played 30 minutes. That's fine. It doesn't matter if he starts or whatever. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. Let me say it 3 more times. It does not matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. Here's my actual complaint. It seems pretty clear that the coach of the basketball team is not comfortable starting games without size and defensive talent in the lineup. Chris Murray started this game because he's a significantly better defensive player than Shaedon Sharpe. No doubt about it. They wanted to start better defenders. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's a very logical, good coaching thing to do. However, if the coach is never comfortable playing a lineup that doesn't feature this level of defensive player, what's Shaedon Sharpe going to do? He's not going to become a positive defensive player in the near future. He is too far away from that. I think it is totally okay to limit Shaedon Sharpe's minutes because he has struggled on defense, and he sure has. And you might say, but Mike, Anthony Simons struggles on defense too. He does. He's a bad defensive player and has been his entire career. But I think this season in particular, almost none of Anthony Simons' shortcomings on defense are about effort and focus. When Anthony Simons gets punked on defense, it's because of size and strength, and because he isn't a great lateral anticipator in terms of sliding. Like he doesn't have the feel on defense to make plays. Shaedon Sharpe stinks on defense because of focus and effort often. It's very different. You could say they hunt Anthony Simons every time down the court, and you are right. You are right. But he's competitive in those switches. He might get scored on a lot. But it's like, just from a coaching perspective, would you rather have the guy who sucks and fights, or would you rather have the guy who's like, he's not focused on the plan? And I think that's just it. But more like that's the decision that Billups is making. Simon's better than Shaedon Sharpe right now too. He just is. That's just true. Some of you are going to get mad about that. It's true. Anthony Simons is better than Shaedon Sharpe. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys and gals who are big Shaedon Sharpe fans, and anyone and anywhere on the great spectrum. Sure, he's just better than him. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish Shaedon Sharpe was undeniable because the talent is there, but he's deniable right now, and that's the problem. And I think the larger picture is that this particular coach feels a certain way about what talent deserves to start, and his comfort level does not include Shaedon Sharpe. And how can you build into the future if the comfort level of the coach does not align with maybe what the priorities of the franchise should be? Should Shaedon Sharpe earn his minutes? He absolutely should. And he did. He played 30 minutes tonight. It doesn't really matter. But just the optics of like this dude, the coach is not comfortable putting this guy in the starting lineup because of some of his flaws on defense is notable, because Shaedon Sharpe has flaws, and notable because it seems like a weird situation with the overall holistic view of the franchise. I think both of those things can be true at the same time. It is a defensible coaching decision and an odd choice in light of the whole damn team. Both of those things are happening at once. Dare to hold two things in your brain at the same time. Also, dare to join me in the third segment, and we'll talk about the Blazers at the break and where they stand after 55 games. Join me there, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Okay, so where are they? 55 games in, 23 and 32. They've now very sadly lost 3 in a row to head into the break, all by double digits. Wah, wah, wah. It is a little bit of a letdown, quite frankly, from where they were, but they are undoubtedly in 2025, and particularly from about mid-January to mid-February, playing the best basketball that they have this season. On the whole, through the first 55 games, the Blazers are 25th in offense and 24th on defense. That's bottom 7 in both, and the 25th net rating in the league. That's just the difference between points allowed and points scored per 100 possessions. That's your net rating. In general, point differential is a pretty good judgment of how good you are, and the Blazers are one of the 6 worst normalized differentials in the league. That's your net rating because they normalize it for 100 possessions because pace exists, because teams play faster and slower. That's where they are on the whole. But I think you got to look at it you don't have to. In fact, you're probably better off taking the whole sample. But I think if you're here and you're with me at this stage of this particular podcast at this time of the season, getting a little more granular has more value. Like, I think like if you look at this Blazer game, you say like, they gave up a freaking buck 32 and 55 to Jamal Murray. This team stinks. But if you are deeply familiar with the whole process, you say, man, they could have quit and they didn't. This is a good sign. This is how granular we're trying to get here. This is how close we're trying to put this team under the microscope. And so I'm willing to borrow a phrase, bifurcate. I'm going to bifurcate. I'm going to bifurcate this in honor of my main man, Neil Olshey, who once bifurcated an entire season and said, like, the regular season is different from the playoffs. And guess what? He was right. It was a stupid thing to say, but he's right. They are different indeed. But you do get judged by if you're a playoff team, you do get judged by what happens in the playoffs, Neil, you doofus. In any case, through the first 41 games, this team wasn't good. They were 13 and 28. It was a bad basketball team on pace to win 26 games. They were in a bad way. And then they got hot. And thanks part to a softer schedule and an extended homestand, but they also blew teams out during that stretch. And here's the thing. They were 13 and freaking 28. It doesn't matter if they beat bad teams. They were the bad team, y'all. like sure, I think you could say like this a little bit of fool's gold and they overachieved, and you might be right about all of that, but like in more broadly speaking, when you talk about where they were, they hadn't won 6 games in a row since 2021. They hadn't even been able to take advantage of soft schedules for 5 freaking seasons. 4, but it had been a minute. So I do think while that stretch from where they did win 10 of 11 and they won 6 in a row is a little bit bolstered by like playing the Magic, who forgot how to score a couple times, beating the Hornets, playing the Heat without Tyler Hero, and while Jimmy Butler was staging an active on-court protest in his final ever game for the Heat. Like, yeah. But they also beat the snot out of a lot of those teams. And over the last 14 games, since January 19th, they're 10-4. They're 14th on offense and 4th on defense. They have the 9th best net rating in the league. Do I think that that's the real team and the team that played the first 41 games is the fake team? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. I'm not. I would never sell you on that. I'm not. I do not fake the funk. I tell you what I think here. Sometimes I think incorrectly, but I tell you what I think. Here's what I think. I think they got better. How much better is probably in the eyes of the beholder, but I think they were in a bad place, and they got together with. They took Shaedon Sharpe out of the starting lineup. They played more minutes with better defenders on the court, a defensible position by the coach, albeit a strange one in light of the entire franchise direction. But when they did that, they've been a lot better. They've taken off on defense since moving Shaedon Sharpe out of the starting lineup. They've been a straight up very good defensive team, even while starting your boy Anthony Simons. Believe it or not, he was capable of being part of big minute, functional, good defensive lineups. and Sharp was still playing 27 minutes a night, so he was also playing big minutes on a team that was defending well. I don't mean to make him the terrible one. I'm not trying to juxtapose them against each other necessarily. I'm just trying to talk about the reasoning behind the coach's decisions, that is. Like, they played more positive, larger defensive lineups. That helped them change around during the stretch. They played a softer schedule. That helped them turn things around, and some guys got rolling a little bit. I think really the takeaway from the first half of the season is that Deni Avdija and Toumani Camara are the Blazers' two best players, and they're kind of the mold that the front office would love to find. That is multi-positional, 6'6" to 6'9" forwards who can guard 2 and 3 positions. They can do multiple things on offense. Although Toumani is still trying to figure out what his multiple things on offense is, but I think he's definitely improved as a driver this year, improved as a passer this year, and improved as a shooter this year. Although he's not like really high level at any of those things, he's definitely taking steps in the direction there. Deni Avdija has a bunch of skills and has versatility on both ends of the court. Those have been their two best players this season. I think Scoot Henderson has taken steps forward this season. Obviously, he was so bad his rookie year that he just had to improve. But I think he's improved to the point where I am comfortable about Scoot Henderson in general being probably like a starting point guard in the league for an extended period of time, when I don't think I always felt that way about him as a rookie. And even earlier this season, there were times where I was like, yeah, I would love to see Scoot have 2 good games in a row. And he was bumpy to begin the season. I think he's been a lot better as of over the last month. The others, true positives, I think DeAndre Ayton found his footing in January. His first 30 games were bad. Maybe his first 30 games the first year were bad too. I don't want to ignore that. DeAndre Ayton was bad the first 30 games of the season. I think that when guys, particularly when guys get criticized as much as DA, when he does have a good stretch, everyone wants to say see, he's good actually. And I that's normal. Protect players on the team you root for. That's a normal thing to do. But I think he was just playing very well on defense. He was really engaged on that end, and they were getting him involved enough on offense that he was effective in the ways that he is effective as a play finisher. And he was playing a really good stretch of basketball. He was playing a really good stretch of basketball before he got hurt, which is why it's such a bummer, because it's if the first 30 games were rocky and the last 50, plays the last 50 games and they're really good, then you feel a lot better about it. But now it's on the whole, I do recall how the season started, but he was playing well. Jeremy Grant at the break, he just forgot how to make twos. He just can't make 2-pointers. I think his defense has actually been fine this year, even at times very good, but on the whole, probably just fine, above average. He can't make twos. He's shooting 50% of the rim, but from 3 feet to the 3-point line, he's shooting under 40%. He just cannot make 2-pointers. Some of that is maybe he's not getting his bread and butter of really tough mid-range post-ups and building his rhythm, but also he cannot make those shots, and that's been a problem for him. And I think the other notable thing with the Blazers at the break is that Shaedon Sharpe hasn't made that year 3 leap. He hasn't necessarily been bad. In fact, I think I've been a little bit hard on Sharpe. I have not intentionally been trying to be hard on Sharpe. I've been a little bit harsh in the way I've discussed him. I think he still has a bunch of high-level skills that he could tap into. The shooting hasn't come around this year. The outside shooting hasn't come around this year. The finishing has been. There's a very, very good finisher. The sort of hope for the Blazers was that Sharpe would take this leap to be oh yeah, he's on the all-star track. And he's not that right now. He's not that. Doesn't mean that he can't be, but he's certainly not that right now. And I think that remains the biggest question for this team. Here's where they are at the break. A bunch of intriguing role players. Toumani is intriguing. Deni Avdija is intriguing. I think Donovan Clingan in the grand scheme is intriguing, although he doesn't play very much. Scoot Henderson has looked a lot better, intriguing. Shaedon Sharpe has some skills, and maybe he's a high-level 6-man or something, because that's the role he has to play on this team. I do think he's allowed to start on other teams. I'll have to check the rule book, but I think he's allowed to start. I think they've got pretty darn good spot minutes here and there from Delano Banton, even though I think he has his obvious warts. Anfernee Simons was horrendous the first month of the season and has rolled into being just kind of what you expect from him. A guy who can't really defend, but has moments that he gets hot and is useful and all of those things, albeit obviously with his warts. But it's Simons is going to play on any team in the league, right? He's a top 8 guy on literally every team in the NBA. And that's kind of where I'm at with this team. They do have a lot of dudes. Like they have won more games this season at 23 than they won all of last season. They are better than they were a year ago, undoubtedly better than they were a year ago. And they're better than a year ago because pretty much everyone is a little bit better than they were a year ago. Except for Jeremy Grant. But what they are still shy of is that tent pole, is that thing that holds it up and says, okay, the reason why the circus works is because of this. They need that. It is a search that they will continue to be on and not one that they will solve very likely in the final 27 games of the regular season. But I will be curious to see who can continue to make their case for it. Can Denny continue to improve? What does Tumani look like in the final little bit? What does Scoot look like? Can Anthony Simons make the cases like, you can't get rid of me, not little me. I'm hungry like I didn't see a meal before I was 17. That's a Lil Wayne reference for y'all. It's late. It's late at night. Welcome to late in the program. I kind of think the Blazers are in the grand scheme, a very weird spot. They're improved. They're not a playoff team, and they're not one of the horrendous teams. So part of their quest is to, nail the 9th pick in the NBA draft, but also, figure out over this next little bit who is absolutely, undeniably indispensable. The next 27 games, hopefully, they get some clarity on who cannot be dispensed, because I think there are big decisions ahead for them, and certainly this front office doesn't ever want to make those big decisions, but at some point, those big decisions are going to show up at their door, and hopefully they can get more sense of what that happens when they are forced to do things that they have not wanted to do for over a year. But in general, I think the way this game ended against the Nuggets is a perfect coda to the whole first half of the season. Yeah, they lost, and yeah, they moved from shouting distance to, loud talking distance. Auditorium projection distance from shouting distance, but they didn't give up the fight. They stayed in it, and they showed enough interesting stuff to keep you coming back. So do me a favor. Keep coming back to this one. 5 days a week. The show is rolling along wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the channel and the program and all of the episodes to come. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.